going on, all you wonderful APlusers out there? It is I, Stuart, here once again to give you guys another Kamen Rider Saber review. This time, of course, we're going to be talking about episode number 38, the episode that wraps up the big arc that we were kind of building up to in the last few episodes. And I believe I was mentioning before, I'm really curious how they're going to be able to keep this going, for another 12 or something episodes. And they definitely do answer that in this because, even though we've had Master Logos kind of being built up as like this main villain, I say we, but really it's me. I kind of forgot that, there are still two other villains out there. We still have Storios and Disaster, and clearly, they have their own intentions. While they definitely make it seem like Storios is working with Master Logos, we also kind of see that Storios really does have his own kind of idea going on of what he wants to do, and it kind of, you get the idea at the end of this episode that really this was all part of his plan. Like, he wanted the other writers to take down Master Logos so that he could be kind of the new villain to rise from the ashes, if that makes sense. But even though I think this episode is going to have a huge impact on where the rest of the show goes, what's funny is that this episode, in terms of just everything that happens, is actually very small compared to other episodes. So this review is definitely going to be a lot shorter than my other reviews, but just because this ends up being a shorter review, don't think that means I didn't like the episode or anything like that. I really did enjoy this episode, and I'm excited to break it all down for you guys. So starting with the very beginning, where once again we got Touma trying to convince Kento to fight alongside with the Riders, since they are all, currently about to pursue in a full frontal assault to Master Logos in order to try and stop him from, of course, destroying the world. But Kento is very conflicted right now, as, I think I made some good points in my previous week of why he's feeling this way. I mean, they kind of did take away his one chance to really put an end to Master Logos once and for all. Even though it was to save him, it still was a choice that he was, ready to make, and they kind of took that choice away from him. So it does make sense of why he's feeling very conflicted right now. So meanwhile, we get the other Riders trying to fight against Master Logos, and of course, like we all kind of expected, it's not enough. Even when more Riders show up, ready to fight alongside each other, even though a lot of these Riders currently have, their own differences. Unfortunately, Batch then shows up, and he is also, we've seen himself, he is also very capable, as he's been able to take on multiple Riders by himself. But right as Batch shows up, we get Touma there ready to face him, and here we get, I think, the best line from Batch that we've gotten, which is fancy a duel before the world ends. I don't know, just something about the way he says it and just the line itself is, I thought, really interesting. It is weird though. I think if I do have a nitpick here, it's that to me, it seemed like in the previous episode, they were really trying to build up a redemption arc for him, and it felt like they were continuing that with this episode, but unfortunately, the fight just ends with him getting his armor slashed, and because his armor is supposed to be impenetrable, it being slashed somehow is enough to defeat him. So it felt very anticlimactic and very, not what they were going for or what they were building up for in the previous episodes. However, I can forgive it because it led to a really awesome sword battle between him and Touma that I actually thought was pretty fantastic for the most part. So I can kind of let this slide. I just kind of wish they actually went through with redemption or something along those lines, because it really felt like that's what they were really building up to. Or at the very least, maybe don't redeem him, but maybe have him stay evil, but not want to work with Master Logos, and therefore he fights alongside with the Kamen Riders. I don't know, it felt like there were other ways they could have written it that would have made it better, but regardless, we got a cool fight scene out of it, so I can't really complain too much about it. Meanwhile, we do cut back to Kento, and we see that the fairy that has his father's voice turns out to be his father. Oh my god, who possibly saw that coming? But yeah, his father is there to kind of just tell him, the biggest thing is that he'll never be able to save the world if he can't be true to himself, and this is what gets him to finally return to his old Kamen Rider form and finally, hang up the Caliber sword and, kind of go back to who he was at the very beginning of the show. So he eventually joins the fight with all the other Riders, and here for the first time we have every single Kamen Rider lined up side by side ready to fight against Master Logos. And what kind of happens after this, it's a little bit of a Deus Ex Machina, but it's not a Deus Ex Machina that hasn't been built up to. This is something that they have been building up to for quite some time, so I, of course, cannot complain about it. But essentially, all the swords do come together to form one all-powerful sword that gives Touma this really fabulous looking new form. I think fabulous is the best way to describe it. It's basically the same as his first Kamen Rider form, as you can kind of see, but it's just got a much different chrome kind of color scheme to it. And what's interesting is that because it's using his own power up with this new sword, I'm wondering if this sword is technically compatible with all the Kamen Riders. Like, all of them can access this form, but it looks different based on the actual Wonder Ride book that you use to power it up. That would be kind of cool to see, like, you know, a chrome version of all the other Kamen Rider costumes. Like, maybe we get like a thing where at the very end all of them have this form. They find a way to like share this power amongst all of them. And what I absolutely love about this power up is something that we'll see is that he uses it not only to save the world, because he's able to like, weirdly enough, he's able to make kind of a copy of each individual rider all across the world in order to have them each destroy each of the, you know, books that are kind of causing the world to disappear individually. But he's then able to utilize all the powers of the other writers as he's then taking on a bunch of minions for Master Logos. And what we get here is a really surprisingly good CGI fight. And I say surprisingly because, you know, earlier in the season, we've had some CGI fights that haven't looked great, but then we get other fights that look okay, to my opinion, but this one I thought actually looked great. So much so is that, like, when I was watching this, you know, I was thinking about the Flash, not season finale of the Flash, but kind of the finale they used to wrap up the previous arc that they were on, and how they had this whole CG fight within that, and it was one of the worst looking CG fights I've ever seen on any television show. And I keep thinking about how, like, you know, that was on the CW, which, I mean, they're not known for having the biggest budgets for their television shows, but they definitely have a bigger budget than Kamen Rider. So I look at how, like, you know, Kamen Rider is able to pull off a CGI fight like this so much better than the Flash, and it kind of, you know, it makes me kind of embarrassed for that show, if that makes sense. But yeah, this, you know, needless to say, this was an absolutely fantastic fight here. Touma just absolutely, like, rips these guys apart, and the animation for it is absolutely beautiful. So it does end with Master Logos, of course, getting away. However, the world is saved, and the characters are celebrating. The only real issue is that Batch's sword is kind of not being looked at right now. So at the very end, we see someone who's, I believe it's meant to be Disaster, but it is possibly Storios, but I don't think so. But we do see someone grabbing the sword at the very end, so it is going to be so I am kind of curious on if it's Storios or if it's Disaster, or, I mean, it could technically be Master Logos as well. I'd have to get a better look at their hands to see which one it matches better. But yeah, regardless, you know, this kind of wraps up that whole arc with Master Logos. So now we move on to what I'm assuming is going to be the final arc of the season. And what's great about this moving forward is that it looks like all the writers are finally ready to work together, including Kento and Ren. The only exceptions being the two siblings that worked for Master Logos. It seems like they still kind of want to do things on their own, which is extremely stubborn and frustrating, but also very much in character of them. So it's not really something I can complain about. But guys, overall, I thought this was an excellent episode and an excellent wrap up for this amazing arc that we've gotten. And again, the show continues to impress me episode after episode. So I'm really excited to see where they go from here. I'm kind of hoping, you know, with how much excitement we've had for the next few from the last few episodes, I'm really hoping that this next episode we get is kind of like a little bit of a breather for us, like, you know, maybe a filler episode, or maybe just kind of even, I wouldn't even mind it if it was a clip show episode, honestly. At this point, it feels like our characters have accomplished so much at this point, they've kind of earned a little bit of a break. I am really curious though, now that they've foiled Master Logos's big plan, I am curious when we're going to be seeing Tassel again, because we know that Master Logos has taken him like captive. We don't exactly know know what he's done with him, but we know that, you know, something has happened to Tassel recently, so I'm really curious if we're going to see him later on in this show. But guys, overall, this was another fantastic episode, and again, a great way to end this arc. It almost felt like it could have been a series finale, but that being said, I'm glad it wasn't. I'm glad to see that we're still getting a few more episodes after this, so I'm really excited to see how they wrap everything up in the end. But guys, of course, as we always say, at the end of the day, these are just my A+ opinions. We here at A+ Opinions always want to know what you guys think, so definitely let me know what you guys thought of this episode in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, but of course, above all, guys, remember to keep it A+.